So hello guys, I welcome all of you here again. So in these series we are covering our syllabus of system designing concepts of B.C.A. third year mainly. So in the last class we have covered some chapters of Unit 1, and in those chapters while teaching you all guys, I have already mentioned some important topics that you have to cover for surely. So today we will start our chapter number 6, which is fact gathering techniques. So we will be going to study all these things, like these four types of fact gathering techniques in this session. So our fact gathering technique is about interviews. Second one is questionnaires. The third one is recorded reviews, and the fourth one and the last one is on-site interview. So this is all about the fact gathering techniques. So as I've already said that in our previous classes, that fact gathering is basically very important. Right, fact gathering is very important in order to basically knew the requirements. In order to knew the requirements, or we can say that in order to uh, gather in order to gather the different types of information from the users of that particular system, all right, so that we can take that particular decision, so that we can take basically so that we can analyze first so that we can first analyze those uh, interviews or questionnaires or recorded reviews or on-site observations. And after analyzing all those things, if there is some any important task we have to perform, or we can say that, or the instruction the decision we have to take on the basis of these facts which we have gathered with the use of these techniques. So these are the very important one. These are the very important thing after, while developing a particular system. This is the very important stage where we have to gather some facts in order to analyze those facts, so that if our system can uh, if our system has different kinds of risk, or we can say that if our user has different point of view of viewing our particular system, so that we can be able to solve those. So let's start with our first topic, like how fact gathering technique, what is the role of an interview. So interview is basically what? Interview is the very important fact gathering technique. As in this technique, what system analysts do? System analysts directly communicate with the users of the system. And what are the users of the system? We have already discussed in chapter number first. So in chapter number first, we have discussed that basically the users are the designers, the programmers, the end users, the project managers, as well as the operational staff. So all these are the users of the system, all right. So important fact gathering technique, as it is a very important fact gathering technique. So in this technique, what analysts do? Analysts directly communicate with the users of the system. So in this technique, analysts can extract more and more information from the user. How? Because in this technique, analysts do face-to-face discussion with the users of the system, so that he can be able to know the views of those users on our current system, all right. So this is all about the fact gathering technique. So this is all about the description basically of interview. Now we will be going to study about what are the guidelines you have to follow if you are taking an interview, all right. Because here we are studying about the duties of sorry, not duties, basically here we are studying about all about the system analyst. So if you want to be a system analyst, you have to do these kinds of things if you are doing a particular interview from the users. So these are some guidelines here. So first we have to set an environment for the interview. It is the most important factor if you are going to take an interview. So first you have to set up a particular positive environment, as well as you can say that the environment must be very formal. You can say that it must be very formal environment, all right. Now formal environment means, so you have to take an interview in, like if I take example, so you have to take your interview one by one. First of all, because formally all those interviews are which are formal interviews are take place in this thing only. So there must be a conference room, or you can say that there must be a there must be a conference table. So on one side you are there, and on the another side interviewee is there. So first you have to set up the environment, or you can say that first you have to set up the stage for this interview. Now the second guideline जो कि हम सबको follow करनी होती है, जो कि है be a good listener. So it is one of the interpersonal skills of the system analyst. So it is one of the interpersonal skills of system analyst. So system analyst must be a good listener, because if system analyst is not a good listener, so he cannot be able to uh, understand the views of the interviewee. So it is must that our system analyst must be a good listener, as well as our system analyst must be a good communicator. All right, so the communication skills we have already studied also in the first chapter. So this is all about this point. So system analyst must be a good listener, and he must avoid arguments. And another guideline is evaluate the outcome, or we can say that the results. Evaluate the outcome or results. So these are some guidelines of taking a particular interview. All right, so now we will be going to study about the different types of interview. So interview is basically of two types. First one is the structured interview, and the second one is the unstructured interview. So in the structured interview, what interview do? Interview will ask same set of standard questions. Interview will ask same set of standard questions from all the interviewees. So basically, if I take the example of a structured interview, if you go to any company, so first they will ask same set of standard questions to all the interviewees. So this is all. This is a kind of a structured interview. Structured interview where the interviewer will ask the same set of standard questions to all the interviewees. The second point is the information collected is quite accurate and reliable. Why it is quite accurate and reliable? Because in this topic, in this interview, in this type of interview, the interviewer can do the cross check, of their doubts itself also, as well as because he is doing their because he is doing discussion on the same time where when he is taking the interview from the interviewee. So this is the point by which we can say that the information collected in these type of interviews are very accurate and reliable, because interview is again and again asking the same set of questions. He is asking again and again the same set of questions. So the most common question, those are the most common answer he got by the interviewees, that will be the correct and accurate answer. Okay, so this is how this type of interview is. So we were studying about the structured interview. We have covered the first point. So in this point, in the second point, what I am saying that the information collected is quite accurate. Is quite accurate in this structured interview. Why it is quite accurate? Because if you understand that in an interview, as interviewer is asking same set of standard questions to every interviewee. So the most common answers, most of the interviewees give, those answers will be taken as the final answers. So this is about the structured interview. This is about the structured interview, as well as it is very reliable because of these things only, because it is very formal, because it is very structured manner, because the interviewer is very you can say that the interviewer is very uh, good listener, or you can say that he avoid argument in these type of structure. That's why it is very quiet and reliable also. Oh, sorry, not quite. No, it is very quite reliable also. So second type of interview is our unstructured interview. So unstructured interview, this is basically undertaken in a question and answer manner. In that type of in the previous interview, that was also in the question and answer format. But in unstructured interview, respondents can frankly give their answers in their own words also, But in a structured interview, there are some set of standards. Which has to be followed by the interviewee. All right. But in unstructured interview, interviewee can give or provide their answers in a very frankly manner. He can use his own words with the system analyst. So it is as the second point is it is more flexible than the structured interview. It is more flexible than the structured interview. This is undertaken in a question and answer format, so he can directly respond very frankly to the system analyst. So this type of interview is basically taken in order to know the actual, or you can say that the real view. But sometimes in a structured interview, sometimes what happens, they give the wrong information. All right, all the interviewees sometimes, most of the interviewees sometimes provide the wrong information in hesitation, or you can say that in ego something. All right, so this is in the structured interview, sometimes we get the wrong answers, but in unstructured interview there are more chances that we can get some correct answer, because here the interview is more frank with the system analyst. So system analyst can get the actual views or answers from the interviewees. So our second type, so this is all about the first type of fact gathering technique, which is interviewers, So our next fact gathering technique is questionnaires. So questionnaires, you can say that it is a kind of forms you fill. Okay, it is a kind of forms you fill. So now I think you will understand the next point in very easily. So questionnaires basically consist of series of questions framed together in logical manner. So it is just saying that there are various different kinds of questions you ask from the uh, from your audience. So questionnaires we use basically where we have very large audience, So in that time we cannot interview a large number of people. So that's why where we have large number of audience, what we do, we prepare a questionnaire, or we can say that we prepare a form over there, and we transfer all the forms to all the interviews. So what is forms contains? A form or questionnaire consists of series of questions framed together in a logical manner. Second point is the questions are very simple, clear, and to the point. All right, so simple, clear, and to the point questions are there in these forms. So if you take the example of, you can take the example of Google Forms as well. All right, so let's move towards the type of questionnaire. So I have already discussed the third part, that third point. Like this is very useful when system analysts want to gather information from a large audience. So why it is very useful, why we have to use questionnaires where we have large audience? Because we cannot take the interview of large audience. If we take the interview of the large audience, that will be very time consuming. So that's why we will prepare these forms. That's why we prepare all these kinds of questionnaires or all these kinds of forms. All right, so there are two types of questionnaires again. So first type is the open response, and the second type is the closed response. So open response is what? Open response is basically used to gather the information about the feelings, opinions, and experience. Feelings, opinions, and experience of the user. And now how it is done, because there are several to the point questions are asked in this type of questionnaires. So that's why this type of response is basically used to gather the feelings, opinions, and the experience of the user. Just like you can see that opinions, I have the example. uh, like you ask a question about what are your opinions about our proposed system, whether we should include some more functionality in it, or the collected ones are the very nice. So this is all about the opinions. So this is about the open response basically. So this is used to gather the feelings, opinions and experience of the users. So let's move towards our next type of questionnaire. So this type of questionnaire is closed response. So closed response, what happens? These forms basically used to gather the information about the most favorable one from the possible alternatives. So as we have discussed, that there can be the different solution of a particular problem. So this type of response is used to gather the favorable one favorable solution from the different alternatives. It is used to gather the most favorable solution from the different alternatives. So how can we take that? The different example of closed responses, fill in the blanks, yes or no type questions, or you can say that the MCQs, multiple choice questions, are there in this type of closed response. So these are the different types of questionnaires here. All right, so let's move towards our next. Let's move towards our next fact gathering technique. So next fact gathering technique is recorded reviews. So as, just a minute. So our next fact gathering technique is about the recorded reviews. So all those reviews which are already collected, basically all those reviews which are already collected. So we will use all those kinds of collected information, all right, which is not collected by ourselves. We take these information or we take these reviews from somewhere else. So let's move towards our first point. These recorded reviews basically involve the information, the collection of information or data accumulated over the time by the users about the system. So this is, as I have already said, that these reviews are collected from the information which is accumulated, or you can say that which is collected by the users over the time. So जितनी भी इंफॉर्मेशन हमारे ऑलरेडी पहले से यूजर्स ने कलेक्ट करी हुई है, हम वही इंफॉर्मेशन को वापस से कलेक्ट कर लेंगे. The information related to system is published in the sources like newspapers, magazines, journals, documents. All right, so we will also collect information from these sources also, newspapers, magazines, journals, documents, etc. All right, so we will collect our information from these sources also, in order, because these are also the recorded information. All right, so we will find out some different sources from to collecting the information. So this record reviews helps the analyst to get valuable information about the system and the organization, because already the research is done. On the system. All right, if the research is already done, so this is how we can collect the valuable information from the system, because the person with higher experience than ours collected these information on the basis of some very important factors. So this is very valuable information if we collect from the newspapers or magazines or journals also. All right, so background research or reading is part of that process. Is part of what process? Is part of collecting, is part of collection collecting the information. Just a minute. Collecting the information. So background research, or you can say that the background readings, are basically very important part of collecting the information about the system. So this point basically very this point is also very important. So last, and the drawback of recorded review is that if we take the recorded reviews as the information, or you can say that as the data about our system, so there is one drawback also. What is our drawback? Using these kinds of fact gathering techniques, using these kinds of fact gathering techniques just a minute. Yes, so with the help of if we use these kind recorded reviews as a type of fact gathering technique, so there is a drawback also. So there might be any chances so that practically functioning of the system is different from the procedures shown in the records due to outdated information. So there is one drawback also. So there might be a possibility come here. Where we see that the practical functionality of the system is different from the procedures which we have recorded which we have already collected from the recorded reviews, because due to outdated information. So due to outdated and sometimes outdated informations are also collected in recorded reviews point also. So system analyst must be aware while collecting the information. He must collect the updated information only. He must collect the updated information only, must not collect the outdated information. So this is all about the recorded reviews. So if I conclude this point, so here in these types of reviews, we collect information from the newspapers, magazines, journals, documents, etc. Or we can say that we take already collected surveys, by the other users also. These kinds of recording are very valuable content, because sometimes more experienced users are collecting these data. And we have discussed about the drawback also, because due to sometimes outdated information is also collected by the system analyst. So sometimes outdated information is also collected by the system analyst. So it might uh, result in some problem also, due to wrong information is collected. So let's move towards our next and last fact gathering technique. So we have studied all these fact gathering techniques. Interviews, what are the interviews, what are the questionnaires, what are the recorded reviews, what are the use of recorded reviews, what are the drawback of recorded reviews. So let's move towards the on-site observation and the last. So in this method, what analysts do, analyst himself visit the organization and observe and understand the flow of documents and working of the existing system and users of the existing system. So what an on-site observation is, as this name suggests, that analyst will go to the site, or you can will go to the place, or will go to the organization where he observes. So we were discussing about the on-site observation, as we have already some points, as my voice was not here due to some network issues. So let me repeat this one. So in this method, what the analyst himself visits the organization and observes or understand the flow of documents, the flow of program, and working of the existing system. He himself moved towards the organization, and then he analyzed the problems in the existing system, or you can say that he analyzed the working of existing system and the users, and he will take the feedback, from the users of the system. So in this first point, we have just mentioned that the analyst himself moved toward the organization. Second point, for this method to be adopted, it takes an analyst to perform this job, as he knows what points should be noticed and highlights. Because as we already mentioned that uh, system analyst is the one who knows the proper system analyst is the one who knows all the key points about the system. So because he know the key point about the system, that is why he has to move, only he has to go towards the only he has to take this responsibility of gathering the facts basically. All right. So next is, this is a very effective tool of fact gathering technique, because there is not any misunderstanding, or there is not any misconception in the system analyst, because he himself moved towards the organization, and he investigate himself the existing system. So let's move towards the drawback. So the drawback of the on-site observation is just that it consumes a lot of time. Because analyst has to study each and every module in the system. The system is not very small things. As we have already discussed, the system is a set of components which are working together in order to achieve a particular objective. So what system analyst has to do? System analyst has to study each and every module, or we can say that he has to investigate each and every component of the system. All right, so that he can find problems, or so that he can find some extra you can say that some extra stuff about the system, extra information about the system. And also analyst should not jump to the conclusion by just collecting a sample data. So it is also a very important point that analyst should not collect the data of only some components, and based on those components he must not conclude that the other components are also working fine. The other components are also working fine. All right. So it must not this point come over there, because as we have already said, this type of fact gathering technique is consumes a lot of time. So it must not happen that system analyst just analyze some modules, and should not directly jump to the conclusions by just analyzing some sample data only. So this is about the drawback, because it is very huge time consuming technique. So we basically only use this technique where there is the requirement, comes up. We not generally use this kinds of technique. We use interviews, or mostly we use interviews, and mostly we use questionnaires, because these two fact gathering technique has sometimes result into the problem, sometimes has the drawbacks. So that's why we use interviews and the record and the questionnaires as the most important part of fact gathering techniques. So this is all about the chapter number 6. The chapter number 6 just contain all these important topics. So I have only gone through the I have only go through the straight to the point. I have only studied, or you can say that I have only teach you the to the point topics of this chapter. So thank you so much guys for joining this session. If you have further any doubts, you can please ping me. I'm providing my email, or you can just put your comment in this section, in the comment section. Okay, so thank you so much guys.